There are a lot of events that have an element of randomness to them. For example, winning the lottery. Probability gives us a way to study these events. Keep watching to learn the basics. Welcome to Math Bytes. I'm Allison, and today we're doing an introduction to probability. Probability is the mathematical study of random patterns. In very basic terms, the probability of an event occurring is equal to the number of ways the event can occur divided by the total number of possible outcomes. And we write that like this. When working with probability, it's important to understand the idea of a sample space. The sample space of an experiment is the set of all possible outcomes of the experiment. For example, what is the sample space of tossing one fair coin 2 times? So what are all the possible outcomes we can get in that experiment? Well, we could toss a head and a head. Then we could toss a head and a tail. Or we could toss a tail and then a head. Or we could toss a tail and a tail. That's it. Those are the only possible outcomes. So our sample space S is equal to 2 heads, a head and a tail and a head, and 2 tails. Okay, let's do another one. What is the sample space of tossing one fair die 1 time? What are all the possible outcomes? If I toss one fair die, I'll either get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6, because those are all the faces of one die. So the sample space S is equal to the set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take a look at an example. A fair coin is tossed 2 times. What is the probability of tossing exactly 2 heads? Okay, let's remember that the probability of any event is equal to the number of ways that event can occur divided by the total number of possible outcomes. And let's remember our sample space for this particular kind of experiment. Our sample space S is equal to the set 2 heads, a head and a tail and a head, and 2 tails. All right, let's define our event E1 as tossing exactly 2 heads. Okay. Now looking at our sample space, how many ways can I toss exactly 2 heads? Only 1 way. So the number of ways the event can occur is equal to 1. Now, what are the total number of possible outcomes? How many things are in our sample space? There are 4 possible outcomes. So the probability of tossing exactly 2 heads is 1 over 4. Okay, let's take a look at another example. What is the probability of tossing at least 1 tail? All right, so we'll define our event E2 as tossing at least 1 tail. Now, how many ways are there to toss at least 1 tail? How many outcomes in our sample space have at least 1 tail in them? 3. A head and a tail and a head, and 2 tails. And the total number of possible outcomes is still 4. So the probability of tossing at least 1 tail is 3 over 4. Here's an important fact to keep in mind about probability. The probability of any event occurring is greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 1. So probabilities are never negative, and they're never greater than 1. A probability of 0 means an impossibility. For example, tossing a regular die and getting a 7. A probability of 1 is certainty. For example, tossing a fair coin and getting a head or a tail. You'll definitely get one or the other, so that would be a probability of 1. Simple examples, like the ones we've just done, are important for understanding the concept of probability. That way you don't get tripped up when the sample spaces get bigger and the problems get more complex. That's it for this episode of Math Bytes. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel. And if there's something you'd like to ask us, just send us an email. We're at contactmathbytes@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time.